Let me just share math. $1 billion bank, $3 trillion CD business in the banking system. It is enormous. So Seattle Bank, we went and did through CD Valet last fall and a campaign, and we raised $150 million in 10 weeks in CDs. So we are a customer of CD Valet. We pay CD Valet just like our other financial institutions, and it's a phenomenal tool. We just now have access to a way bigger market, and we can turn that on and off when we want in terms of how aggressive we want to be, or if we want to do something unique in terms of a promotion.
Growing deposits is a constant concern and a difficult task for every institution. When Seattle Bank needed to accelerate their own deposit growth, they looked to the sizable market of CDs, but found it unfriendly to smaller community FIs. Their effort to bridge the gap to rate-conscious consumers led to the creation of the CD Valet marketplace. With us today to share their story of building the fintech partner they wanted to work with is Seattle Bank CEO John Blizzard. John, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Rich. Good morning.
So, John, where do we find you today?
Today I'm in downtown Seattle in a high rise, overlooking the Puget Sound and all our gray skies. So a beautiful winter day here in the Northwest.
So, John, you're the CEO of Seattle Bank, a roughly $1 billion community institution, and also the company, is that independently owned or is it owned by the bank CD Valet?
CD Valet, which is owned 100% by our holding company, which owns the bank as well. So same group of investors.
So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you come to, I guess, rejoin Seattle Bank, as it were? A little bit about your background there, and then we can kind of get into this, like, why is a community bank own a two-sided marketplace for shopping for CDs?
Sure. Yeah. Interesting, or maybe interesting to a few people. Background, because I just have been operating in a lot of areas of financial services, and started out in a credit union for 3 years, coming out of early '90s when the economy was not great in Oklahoma, and was fortunate to get a job on a teller line after graduating, and got hired on as a full-time employee in lending, consumer lending, ran branches, and involved in that, and then made my way out west, and worked for a mortgage banking company called Seattle Mortgage Company, which is owned by Seattle Bank, where I am now. But I did that for 7 years, so I had a long stint in mortgage banking. Great time doing that in the '90s, and then ultimately made it to the Federal Home Loan Bank of Seattle, which was very interesting. I got to work with a lot of, hundreds of banks and credit unions around the West mainly, but ultimately was the chief banking officer there, and worked with, anywhere from really small banks and credit unions to the biggest banks in the country. And so it gave me a great insight to banking as a business and the different strategies and different managements styles. And that was a super interesting. At the high point, we had 47 billion loaned out to the banks that were members. And so that was a great tenure. And then ventured from there to running a traditional community bank for a couple of years, and then came to Seattle Bank. Came back home to Seattle Bank in 2014. And so been here over 10 years now, and just having a great time. But when I came to the bank and was recruited back to Seattle Bank, it was really a clean slate. It had been purchased by new investors, and it was post great financial crisis. And my view then was like, hey, you got to get out of the branch banking business. You got to find niches that make sense, where you can add value to customers, embrace technology, and have really highly talented people. And so that's what we did, and we've been on this journey ever since.
So what led to, I guess, maybe the insight or the impetus to start looking at CDs beyond just, say, your own deposit strategy for Seattle Bank?
Yeah, so we, as a bank, we would run campaigns occasionally to raise new deposits and raise CDs, to do that. And what we found is we did the traditional advertising, right? And so we did some Google AdWords, and we did newspaper and did those kind of things. But in 2018, we did a large purchase. We bought a large bulk of loans from the FDIC that grew the bank a lot in a hurry, and so we initially funded that with wholesale funding, and we needed to replace that with retail deposits. And so we went out more aggressively to raise CDs to do that. And what we found is we really weren't picked up by the national marketplaces. And so we weren't picked up, nor were some of our competitors. And what we found is there really wasn't a marketplace nationwide where consumers could go and find all the rates. We had one of the best rates in the country. By the way, I think it was like a 2 year at 240 or something, which was a really good rate then. Um, but so we found out we were not experts in this area at the time at all, and we found out, wow, we are just not. We have this great product, great offering, and we're not visible online because in the old days, you're in the newspaper. You might, as a small bank or credit union, you could have a small ad next to a big bank's big ad, but you were in the same page for the consumer to see. Online, it's a totally different competitive landscape, and most community banks and credit unions are just don't have the sophistication and the focus there to really compete. Think of the online banks; we call them internet banks. Going back 20 years, they have grown to be $1 trillion between the top five internet banks, and they have taken humongous share of depositors from community banks, from large banks, from credit unions by having a great digital presence, being very sophisticated in their marketing, having great digital account opening solutions that still 62% of banks and credit unions don't have digital account opening for CDs, which is remarkable. So they have a 20-year head start on the rest of the industry. So we just discovered that there really wasn't this marketplace, and the more we looked into it, the more we found like, wow, it's a huge consumer base. They have a lot of money they are investing in this very conservative product, and nobody serves them well. They don't have a wealth advisor typically. They'll have $100,000 to $5 million to putting in good old CDs. The industry, like we chatted earlier, the industry calls it hot money. We call those really important customers. And we shouldn't begrudge them in the banking industry because they want to make a good return on their money. And so we set out, we realized, wow, this is a huge consumer base, way underserved, and we thought we could do something about it. And as a bank, we already had a philosophy of paying our customers a good competitive rate on deposits. So we said, hey, we're not worried about losing our own customers, cannibalizing our business. We can go out and offer nationwide the best, most comprehensive information, the best tools for consumers, 30 million plus that are like serious savers to find the best deals and drive that business, not just to big internet banks, but drive it to community banks and credit unions that oftentimes have amazing deals.
So it seems a little non-obvious, I guess, or maybe the alternative being, hey, let's put a lot of effort, money, talent, whatever, into our own marketing. Meaning, let's drive more traffic, more interest to Seattle Bank versus let's create an entire marketplace around that. What were the pros and cons, or kind of what eventually led you into that, going in that direction?
Well, let me just share math. $1 billion bank, $3 trillion CD, CD business in the banking system. We are a grain of sand on the beach relative to the size of the beach, relative to the size of the CD business. It is enormous. So Seattle Bank, we went and did through CD Valet last fall, and a campaign, and we raised $150 million in 10 weeks in CDs. So we are a customer of CD Valet. We pay CD Valet just like our other financial institutions. And it's a phenomenal tool. We just now have access to a way bigger market, and we can turn that on and off when we want in terms of how aggressive we want to be, or if we want to do something unique in terms of a promotion. And frankly, we've been able to get more relationships, taking good care of those customers. We have a top-notch digital account opening technology we've implemented. That's key. And then we have a tremendous team, a focus team that is just focused on our CD customers. And then we've been able to grow that business beyond CDs with some of that customer base, which has been really cool.
So those capabilities, like your DAO capabilities, is that something that you make available to the member banks that are advertising and or getting services from CD Valet?
Yeah, exactly. So we're agnostic to whether they have their own or if they want to select a new digital account opening, but we do offer the prelim technology. We have a master license with them, and so we can implement that for financial institutions. We find it to be super impressive. We use it not only for regular CDs, we are rolling out, have recently rolled out the first digital account opening for IRA CDs. You can do the whole CD and the IRA online. First, really, maybe there's a couple out there hidden somewhere in the industry. We're not aware of anybody that really offers that anywhere. And so it's built on low code, no code technology. It's the latest and greatest. But we find it to be exceptionally good. And then, but that's half of it. Technology is half of it. The other half is your people, your processes, your follow through. You have to have great follow through. You can't just plug the technology in and expect everything to work great. You have to, like, for example, in account opening, probably for any kind of deposit, but in CDs, it's the two areas people get stuck: IDV, verifying who they are; funding. Those are complex, important areas. So our team is expert at following up immediately when they see a customer having challenges, and then we can take them down different track to make that a successful investment for them.
The pitch here to your depositors, to the largely consumers, I'm assuming, is who you're marketing to on
Yes.
that end. So largely retail consumer depositors is, we're giving you insight into better deals for you, that frankly are probably hidden because of, a few 800-pound gorillas that suck a lot of the oxygen out of, the digital ad space. What what else is in it for them? Are there tools and capabilities, other things, or is it just we're exposing you to rates that were hidden to you before?
Yeah. So first of all, for the consumer, we're showing them 32,000 rates. They're updated on a regular basis from 4,000 financial institutions. So it's an incredible amount of information. So we've had over 2.5 million people to the site, and that's going to grow dramatically going forward. And we have a huge amount of return users. But for the financial institutions, we are responding to their requests. And which is really interesting. We have great relationships with our partner FIs that are using CD Valet, and so we've built out some new tools. So we have the leads, customer leads to get new customers and deposits to generate that for them. But we also have marketing services. So on CD Valet, one thing that we discovered is the consumer. This is super interesting. The consumer is very interested in these community banks and credit unions. They want to know who they are and learn about them. They are clicking over 100,000 times a month on their logos and names to learn more about them. Traditionally, that was just kind of a boring page that showed you all their CDs. And so what we're going to do is we're opening that up to the financial institutions to tell their story on that page, have their own homepage on CD Valet, and enable them to be contacted by the consumer, be able to cross sell other products. And the reality is, these consumers coming to our site, and these are, we're generally targeting the serious saver, people with real money. They're very interested in who these financial institutions are. So there's a real opportunity for them to tell their unique story. Let's face it, like, hey, one of the coolest things is community banks and credits can be so different. And you see this on your show when you talk to people, all these different business models and different areas, communities, and different areas they're trying to serve. And, that's pretty interesting, cool stuff for consumers to learn about and maybe find something that resonates with them and build a bigger relationship and get out of their relationship at some big bank they've had since they were 18. But
So
anyway, so we have those marketing services, we have digital account services, and then we have analytics. We have the most comprehensive analytics around the CD market in the country. So we track every day. We take the data on all those rates, put it in a data lake that we can extract it, and we can look back at all the history. And so I'll tell you some stats from yesterday, from a month ago. I just looked this up before our call, and so I can tell you over the last month we had 3,275 rates on CD Valley went down. Not surprising. Fed's been lowering rates, right? But we also had 886 rates go up. So there's very different strategies for financial institutions, and we have all this data. That is like a one small thing that we have that's at your fingertips if the financial institutions use our analytics. But anyway, a lot of these ideas come from the financial institutions to say, "Can you help us with this or help us with that?" And so it's been a lot of fun.
And you're serving from institution size credit unions and banks.
Yep, credit unions and banks, we will from the smallest, we have banks that are sub 70 million, and we have top 50 banks on the site, and so we make it available to everybody. We our North Star is the consumer and driving them the best value we possibly can, and enabling the financial institutions to tell their story and compete based on who they are and what they're great at.
So let's talk a little bit about the creating CD Valet, going down that road. I understand the market opportunity and why that made sense. How hard of a sell was this to say we want to create essentially a service product that begins to look and smell more like an internet business or a fintech company in particular. What was the sell to the board, to your partners, to anything that was involved in that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, we consider CD Valet to be a fintech. And the great thing is, of course, we're in a tech hub, Seattle, and a lot of innovation happens here. A lot of consumer oriented innovation has happened here. Think of Amazon, of course, but even before Amazon, Costco is based here. These are very focused on a huge amount of consumers and driving massive value to them. So that's kind of, that's in our DNA in the Pacific Northwest to be focused on those kind of things. And so our owners of our bank are investors in some of those most successful companies in the internet and on the consumer area and on marketplaces. So it was a natural. We saw how poorly the consumer was being served, number one, and then just how big the market was. We're like, we know there's a big opportunity there to do something way better. So and we iterated. We of course tested with our own customers, did a lot of research, retested. And so we built it, but we've got a very strong conviction. We see a big market. We're getting huge results. And yeah, pretty excited about it.
And from an organizational standpoint, does CD Valet kind of sit within the structure of the bank, or is it a completely different organization?
It's legally a different entity. We've incubated it out of Seattle Bank, and you'll see us as we grow and likely bring on board some external investors. Ultimately, this is a business that's better set up to be outside of the bank, and so that's what we're moving towards. Is we have a number of employees, or full-time employees, who work on nothing but CD Valet. We've set up everything to be in a position to really treat it as a separate company. Seattle. So all of our contracts and technology and all these things from day one were we had just assumed it would be a kind of a company that you operate outside of a bank. And so yeah, that's where we're headed. And yeah, there's big opportunity if you think of consumers and how they go and find financial services. And we consider CD Valet to be a marketplace 2.0. And what you've seen to date is marketplaces 1.0, which are long in the tooth at this point. They show you a very limited, whether you're looking at mortgages or whatever, you see a very limited number of what's actually out in the market. And we think Marketplace 2.0 give the consumer way better information, way better tools, and so that's what we're doing in our small way.
So as you got started, were you or other people like wearing two hats within the organization, or was it very kind of clean? You're on one side or you're on the other, and we only kind of stand here as the equity stake we have in it.
Yeah, no, we definitely have a robust management team, especially for the size of the bank. We hire very talented folks that you'd probably find typically in much larger banks. And so we've had many people wearing multiple hats. Over the last, say, year, 18 months, we've been hiring CD Valet dedicated employees as we move in that direction. But oh yeah, we're all in. We have a group of, like I said, really talented people working really hard to make this come true. And Yeah, that's worked well. But we're going to continue to invest, bring in more dedicated resources as we move forward.
So I mean that presents like the interesting question, right? Because if somebody else is looking at this and looking at not the same idea but a similar idea or something else, you look at like in credit unions, like the QSO model, right? Is kind of well established for how that works. There's a lot of examples to look at, but this idea of like we're going to spin out a particular fintech idea from what we're doing or a particular business. I mean, there's only a handful of examples to look there, right? As far as what works, what's the model, and I guess from that standpoint, what was the hard part for you kind of doing this? If if there was quite a bit of invention, not only from the actual product that was out there, but the method in which you did it, how it was organized, how you began to think about kind of go to market to a completely different market and different type of customer. What was like the really steep learning curve that you kind of had to go through, either personally or as an organization?
Yeah, I think what we learned is you have to build it in steps and you can't just go to the end state. And so, getting everybody, all the constituents on board with, hey, this is our phase we're in now. That is not our end phase. And we got to bring the consumers to the site. First of all, we got to get all the rates. Then we bring all the consumers to the site. Then we bring financial institutions that will be willing to pay us for leads. Then we can do a subscriber model and some other things that are in the works. And so it's really making sure everybody gets the vision of where we're going, but that we have to get there in these incremental steps. And you kind of can't overstate the vision and where you're going and the ultimate goals. There's of course challenging areas, but I will say for a fintech that with CD Valet is we can move so much faster than say inside a bank and the technology that touches say a digital banking inside your bank. You got at least 6 to 8 vendors that touch your digital banking. It is very complicated and you cannot move very fast. CD Valet, which is primarily an information site, and then we hand off that customer to you as a credit union or bank to then handle after they show interest. We can move and create change very quickly, and that's been very exciting how fast we can move and really benefit. Take the information we're learning from the consumers, from the financial institutions, and iterating on that. So we have big changes coming, and those will be rolling out in the first of the year, all from that learning. But it is an interesting aspect. Hey, it's all work. It's all challenging. If you're in the banking business, we have a big responsibility to make sure what our consumers see is accurate, their transactions are safe, that we're getting them good information, and so we take all of that super seriously.
So is this a one and done for you guys, or are you looking at other areas, potentially other ventures to look at?
This is our focus for sure right now, and probably will be for a while. We have other business lines in the bank that do extremely well, that are also kind of niche oriented. But CD Valet is our focus on the fintech front for sure.
Well, John, thanks for coming today and sharing your story. It's been really interesting. If people are interested in learning more, where can they go for more information?
So they can email me at jblizzard at seattlebank.com. Again, jblizzard at seattlebank.com, or go to cdvalet.com and hit the contact us, and we will get right back to you.
And we'll put links to that in the show notes. John, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.